Now let's talk more about styling. HTML styling is called CSS, or Cascading Style Sheets. It basically makes everything in HTML look pretty. If you can remember, Cassidy said earlier that writing the style attribute is the wrong way to style your HTML. We're about to start talking about the right way to style your HTML.
One thing to note is that because it's cascading style sheets, it means that everything happens in order. So everything that you write will kind of overlap on each other, but we'll get more into that later.
So in order to begin your CSS, you'll need to use a style tag. A style tag is used in the head tag. CSS is written in a different format than HTML. It has a declaration, a selection, properties, and values. The selection is the name of the part you want to style. In our case, we want to style images. So our selection is called images. Then we put curly braces opening and closing. And within those curly braces, we put the property we want to edit. In our case, we want to edit the width. Then you put a colon, and then you write the value of what you want the width to be. In our case, it's 200 pixels. At the end of every property line, you want to end it with a semicolon. And that's just about it. Now we can remove the style attribute from the image tag. Save it. And we should have the same styling attributes on the image tag as before. So if you click refresh, notice no change has been made, which is what we want. We can keep going and do it with things like the body. In order to edit the body, you write body, opening and closing curly braces, and you can change the colors of the fonts, the font family, the background color, as we showed before. So let's change the color of all the font in the body. You would write color as your property, and for a value you could write red. End it with a semicolon, save and refresh, and now all the text in the body is red.
So whenever you write CSS, it'll always be in these declarations. So there's always a declaration which consists of the selector, which is what you're going to be styling, curly braces, then a property that you will be specifically targeting, and the value for that property. So again, for the image tag, the IMG is the actual selector. The curly braces are what consists of the whole declaration. Width is the property that we're affecting, and then 200 pixels is the actual value that we give it. And everything in CSS follows this pattern.
This can make our code look pretty lengthy, so we want to organize it between two files, an HTML file and a CSS file. So let's do that. We can completely delete our style tag, copy these attributes and delete them, and let's create a new file and paste those attributes over. You can remove the style tags because I said before, CSS does not have tags. So now let's go File, Save As. We'll call it Style Sheets, and make sure it ends with .css. Notice that the HTML file was .html. This is going to be .css. And save it in the same folder as you saved your index.html. Now we want to make sure that we connect these two files. You do so in the HTML file in the head tags with a tag called link. Link is one of those tags that has attributes but doesn't have an end. It has three attributes. The first is rel. The second is type. And the last is href. In href, we want to put the style sheets.css, or the name of our CSS file. In type, we want to put text/CSS. And in rel, we want to put style sheets. So now this attaches our stylesheets.css to our recipes.html. So if we save that, and then save our stylesheets.css, and then refresh our page, we can see that the styles are still applied to our HTML. If we didn't have this link tag and saved it, our styling would be gone, which is not what we want. So the link tag is necessary to connect the two files together. It should be noted that if you edit the width and the height of an image, the height or the width is still preserved, respectively. So we've already discussed the color. You can also include a background color. And let's just make that blue. As before, if you refresh the page, now the background is blue, but that doesn't look so good. There are 3 different ways to define a color. You can name a color like how we did with red and blue. You can use a hex code, or you can define it with RGB. A hex code consists of a pound sign and 6 characters. If you want to look up a valid hex code, you can go to a website such as W3 Schools, search hex codes, and it will show you different hex codes for different colors. So let's say I wanted a shade of green. This shade, for example. It's 6 characters, 00CC66. I could copy that over. And then under color, I write my pound sign, and then insert the color. Similarly, with RGB, or red, green, blue, I would write RGB, then an opening and closing parenthesis, and then I would look for a valid RGB color on a website like W3 Schools. So let's say I wanted to do for the background color, this nice maroon. The lower the number in the RGB, the less of that color is used. So in this case, no blue and no green are being used, but there is red being used. So if I save this and run my website, you can see that the colors were edited. You can also add a background image. So instead of background color, you would type background image, and then URL, opening and closing parentheses, and then within those parentheses, put single quotes, and then a semicolon at the end. I have a background image already saved, and it's called bg.png. Notice how I keep the file type at the end of the file name. So then we click Save, and then refresh our page. Pretty cool. Let's talk about some more styles. I don't really want my entire website to be in Times New Roman font. Let's do something like Arial. If we go back to body, we can write font family. For this example, I'm going to use Arial, a pretty standard font. So I can save the page, refresh, and now my entire page is in Arial font. Now I want to change the font size. So I would type font -size, and let's change it to 25 pixels. So we refresh the page and we see that now the text is bigger, which is what I want. Finally, let's talk about text alignment. You can align it centered, left, or right. In this case, I'm going to align it centered. Now when I save and click refresh, everything should move to the center, which it does. If you notice, the list gets a little funky, and we'll talk more about that later. Now we have finished going through general styling techniques.